If you ever want to know what loneliness looks like, don't look for it in empty rooms or silent houses. Look for it in the middle of a crowded market, where everyone has somewhere to go and something to buy, and not a single soul stops to see what's right in front of them. It was raining in Astoria, Oregon that Saturday. Fat drops turning the old riverside market into a jumble of umbrellas, slickers, and shuffling feet. The air smelled of fish and fried bread, river mud and wood smoke, and the constant hush of rain drowned out all but the boldest voices. 7-year-old Nora Jenkins trailed a step behind her mom, Madison, trying to hop from dry spot to dry spot along the cracked concrete by the docks. Nora's rain boots made a faint squeak every time she landed, which made her grin at first. But the sound was quickly swallowed by the noisy market. She couldn't remember her mom ever looking so tired, eyes red from too little sleep and too much sadness. Her mind drifting somewhere else as she scanned the stalls for cheap groceries and half-price paints. That was when Nora saw the horse. A thin, wild-eyed brown mare stood tethered to a battered two-wheeled cart near the edge of the market, right by where the docks faded into brambles. She was hard to spot at first, half hidden by a tarp and an old heap of fishing nets. The mare's ribs pressed sharply against rain-darkened skin, and her mane was so tangled it looked almost like seaweed. A frayed rope bit into her neck, and her eyes, those huge, searching eyes, tracked every movement around her with a mix of hope and dread. Nora stopped walking. The mare's tail flicked nervously, but she didn't make a sound. Something in the way the horse looked, so desperate for comfort, but so sure she wouldn't get any, made Nora's chest ache. She edged closer, heart pounding. The noise of the market seemed to fade, as if the rain itself was waiting to see what she'd do. A gruff voice interrupted her. "Watch it, kid." The man standing behind the cart wore a raincoat crusted with old stains and had a scowl as permanent as his 5 o'clock shadow. He was rearranging crates of limp carrots and bruised apples, not even glancing up as Nora pointed. "Is this your horse?" she asked, her voice almost lost in the storm of market chatter. He snorted, not unkindly, but with the resignation of someone who'd long ago stopped hoping for better days. "Useless baggage, that one. Nobody wants her. Not strong enough for the plow. Not pretty enough for the tourists." He stuffed a rotten apple into a sack, shaking his head. "She's just waiting for someone to put her out of her misery. That's the truth." Nora opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The words hit her like icy water, making her blink fast. She reached out a tentative hand. The mare leaned forward, nostrils flaring as if hoping for a treat. But at the last second, a sudden shout from a nearby fish vendor made her jerk back, whites of her eyes flashing. The mare trembled, legs locked, ready to bolt if she could. Nora's mom, Madison, finally noticed her daughter had stopped. "Nora, come here, honey. It's wet out." Her voice softened as she saw the horse, and something flickered across her face. Pity, fear, and a shadow of memory. For a moment, she didn't look tired at all. She looked worried. "Mom, look at her. She's scared," Nora pleaded, tugging at Madison's sleeve. "We have to help her. Please, Mom. She can't stay here." Madison sighed, eyes drifting over the mare. The grief from losing her own mother a month ago clung to her like the rain, heavy and unshakable. She squeezed Nora's shoulder. "Sweetheart, I know it's hard, but we can't help every stray. I just don't know if we have room or money or—" Her voice trailed off as the words stuck in her throat. Nora shook her head, refusing to let go. "But if we don't help, nobody will. She's so scared. Please, Mom, she needs us." The vendor overheard, rolling his eyes. "Listen, lady, if you want her, make an offer. But she won't last till Monday. You hear me? That's when the hauler comes." His words hung heavy in the air, thick with warning. Nobody said what would happen if the hauler did come, but Nora's imagination filled in the blanks. Places where horses went but didn't come back. Rainwater dripped off the mare's nose, and she looked at Nora with haunted, desperate hope. Every time someone moved too quickly or shouted too loud, the mare shrank away, like a shadow afraid of the light. But when Nora looked her in the eye, she saw something that made her heart squeeze, the tiniest flicker of trust, as if the horse was holding on to hope by the barest thread. Madison hesitated, torn between her daughter's plea and the weight of her own burdens. The overdue bills, the part-time art classes barely paying the rent, the hole her mother had left behind. She knelt beside Nora, brushing a strand of wet hair from her daughter's forehead. "I promise we'll think about it," she said softly. "But let's get you home, dry you off. We can't decide everything today." Nora didn't move. The crowd surged around them, umbrellas spinning, feet splashing. The world spun on, people arguing about prices, children tugging at candy stalls, vendors counting soggy bills. But for Nora, time had stopped. There was only the thin brown mare, the rain, and the feeling that if she left now, something precious would be lost forever. Madison gently took her hand, and together they turned away. But Nora kept looking back, eyes locked with the mare's until the horse and cart disappeared behind a curtain of rain. That night, as thunder rolled over the river and the market closed down, the mare waited alone, ears pricked for footsteps that never came. And as Nora climbed into bed, shivering with worry, the vendor's words echoed in her mind. She won't last till Monday. And she knew, deep down, that tomorrow had to be different. Rain battered the windows long after Nora and her mom returned home from the market. Their tiny apartment above the pottery shop always felt small on nights like this, the walls pressing in with every gust. Madison hustled through the motions of the evening, putting away groceries, folding a stack of old dish towels, checking her phone for freelance art jobs that never seemed to reply. But all Nora could think about was the brown mare, standing alone in the wet, tethered to her fate by nothing but a frayed rope and the thin thread of hope in her haunted eyes. Madison called her to dinner, but Nora just sat at the table, silent, staring at her plate. Steam rose from the boxed macaroni and cheese, but Nora didn't pick up her fork. Madison glanced at her, concern flickering behind her exhaustion. "Honey, you've got to eat something." Nora shook her head, pushing the food around. "I'm not hungry. Not until we help her." A silence stretched between them. Madison chewed her lip, glancing toward the window streaked with rain. She wanted to tell Nora that it wasn't that simple, that the world was full of hard choices, but something about her daughter's stubbornness brought back memories. Nights when she'd begged her own mother to help stray cats in the alley, or nursed a sick robin back to health. She saw her younger self in Nora's worried face and felt a sharp pang of longing for the comfort that animals used to bring her. Later that evening, after a wordless hour spent sketching at the kitchen table, Nora made her decision. She rummaged through the art bin beneath her bed, pulling out a wrinkled sheet of poster board and her brightest markers. In careful, slanted letters, she wrote, "Help save the brown mare." She filled the sign with blue raindrops, a clumsy drawing of the horse's sad eyes, and a big red heart. After a moment of hesitation, she added a second line at the bottom. "She needs a home. Please help." Nora taped the sign to her bedroom window, facing the street below, where the glow of lamplight cut through the dark. She sat on her bed, knees tucked to her chest, and whispered a vow to herself. "I won't smile again until the horse is safe." She meant it. She tried to picture the mare somewhere warm and dry, but the image wouldn't come. Madison lingered in the doorway, watching her daughter with a heavy heart. She picked up her phone and called Jamie, her best friend since high school, and the only person in town she trusted enough to speak her fears aloud. Jamie answered on the second ring, voice bright despite the late hour. "Hey, Maddie, you okay? Sounded rough at the market today." Madison let out a shaky laugh. "Yeah, you could say that. Nora found a horse, skin and bones, tied up by the docks. She's obsessed. Wants to save her. I don't know if I can do it, Jamie. Things are so tight right now, and after Mom..." Her voice caught. She pressed a palm to her chest. Jamie's tone softened. "You're doing the best you can, honey. But maybe you should listen to Nora. You know how you were with animals as a kid. I still remember you rescuing that squirrel from the gutter." "That's not the same," Madison said. But the words sounded thin even to her own ears. "A horse it's a big commitment. Vet bills, feed, space. I don't even know if I'm capable right now." Jamie was quiet for a moment, then spoke gently. "You're stronger than you think. Maybe this is exactly what you and Nora need. Something good. Something worth fighting for." After they hung up, Madison found herself staring at Nora's sign in the window, glowing like a beacon in the storm. Memories of childhood comfort flooded her. The warmth of a dog curled at her feet, the steady rhythm of brushing a pony at summer camp, the way animals listened without judging. Grief twisted inside her, but also something softer, the ache of hope trying to be reborn. Down the hall, Nora couldn't sleep. The rain had faded, replaced by the distant hum of the river and the ticking of the clock on her wall. She tiptoed out of bed, slipped on her raincoat and boots, and crept to the front door. She hesitated, listening for Madison's footsteps, but the apartment was quiet except for the faint sound of late-night traffic. Outside, the world felt sharper, darker. The wind tugged at Nora's hood as she hurried down the steps and out into the wet. She crossed the empty street, guided only by the lamplight and the urgent thump of her heart. The market was closed now, stalls shuttered, the riverside shrouded in fog, but she could see the brown mare's shape, unmoving by the docks, as if waiting for her. Nora crouched by the market fence, careful to keep out of sight. She whispered across the distance, voice trembling. "It's okay. You're not alone. I'll help you. I promise I won't let them hurt you. I'll come back, I swear." The mare's ears twitched, head lifting ever so slightly. Nora stretched out her hand, fingers curled around the fence. The horse stepped forward, just enough for her nose to brush the wire, breath warm against Nora's skin. For a long moment, they stayed like that, two lonely souls in the dark, bound by hope. A sudden creak of footsteps startled Nora. She jerked back as Madison appeared, raincoat thrown over pajamas, hair wild from worry. She looked furious and terrified. "Nora, what on earth are you doing out here?" Her voice cracked, caught between anger and relief. "You could have been hurt, sweetheart." Nora's chin quivered, but she didn't cry. She just pointed to the mare. "She's scared, Mom. She needs us." Madison knelt beside her, arms wrapped tight around Nora's shaking shoulders. The anger drained out of her as she watched the mare press closer to the fence, desperate for connection. A long, anxious silence settled. Madison stared at the horse, at Nora, at the empty, fog-wrapped street. For the first time in weeks, she felt the world pause, grief and fear and hope tangling together. She realized that sometimes doing the right thing isn't about being ready. It's about answering when you're needed. "All right," Madison said softly, her voice trembling. "Just for tonight. We'll bring her home, but only until we figure something out, okay?" Nora nodded, unable to stop the small, shaky smile that finally broke through her worry. Together, hand in hand, they walked toward the dock, where the lonely brown mare waited in the rain, the first fragile seeds of trust blooming in the dark. Willow's first night in the Jenkins' small paddock wasn't the kind of homecoming Nora had dreamed about. It was more like a wary truce, one trembling creature lost among strangers, and two humans determined to keep a fragile promise. Madison drove home with Willow in a borrowed trailer, her hands tight on the wheel, knuckles pale in the dashboard light. Every bump in the road made Willow lurch, nostrils flaring, hooves clattering in panic against the metal floor. Nora sat beside her mother, eyes wide and hands gripping her knees, as if her own willpower could hold the horse together until they reached safety. Rain tapped on the car roof. The radio played a gentle country song, barely audible over Willow's anxious snorting. Madison's mind spun with questions. What if the landlord found out? What if she couldn't pay for hay? Was she making a huge mistake for herself, for Nora, for this terrified animal? Yet every time she looked in the rearview mirror and saw Nora's hope shining like a candle in the dark, she kept driving. When they arrived home, the wind had died down, leaving the air heavy and wet. The Jenkins paddock wasn't much, a rectangle of half mud, half scrubby grass behind the apartment, ringed by a sagging fence and an old apple tree. But it was fenced, and it was theirs for now. Madison led Willow into the enclosure, moving slow, murmuring nonsense words the way her mother had when she rescued strays. Willow's muscles stayed taut as wires. She paced the fence line over and over, stopping only to snort at shadows or flinch when a car's headlights swept by. She wouldn't eat the carrots Madison laid out, nor the bucket of oats Nora set down just inside the gate. Her ribs heaved with every breath, and she eyed the humans with a look that was equal parts pleading and warning. Nora tried not to cry. She stood at the fence, her sign from the window clutched in one hand, and whispered softly, "It's okay, Willow. You're safe now." The mare flicked an ear at the sound, but didn't approach. Nora's heart clenched. She wanted so badly to rush in, to hug Willow's rain-soaked neck, but she could see the panic shimmering in every muscle. So instead, she pulled out her favorite book, The Secret Horses of Mustang Valley, and began to read aloud. At first, Willow paid no attention, but as Nora's voice threaded softly through the night, the mare's frantic pacing slowed. She stood by the fence, head low, listening, and Madison watched from the kitchen window, a mug of cold tea forgotten in her hands. She saw her daughter's face glow with hope and saw her own pain reflected in the horse's trembling body. The rawness of grief inside Madison felt less lonely somehow, as if Willow understood what it meant to hurt and hide. Later that night, Madison slipped outside and joined Nora by the fence. She wrapped an old quilt around her daughter's shoulders. Together they watched Willow circle, pausing now and then to study her new world with wary eyes. Moonlight caught the outline of old scars along Willow's flank, a long, jagged mark that told a silent story of pain and endurance. "Do you see that, Mom?" Nora whispered, pointing. Madison nodded, tears pricking her eyes. She crouched down, voice barely above a whisper. "She's been through something bad, sweetie. Animals can carry their hurts for a long time, just like people." Nora's lower lip quivered, but she nodded fiercely. "I want to help her heal. Can we keep her forever?" Her question hung in the air, heavy and hopeful. Madison couldn't answer, not yet. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, let alone next week, but she squeezed Nora's hand in silent promise. As midnight approached, the neighborhood grew quiet. No more cars, no more shouting from the market or distant foghorns. Willow stood motionless in the far corner, eyes half closed but never fully relaxed. Madison felt the old ache of anxiety pulse in her chest, the same feeling that gripped her since her mother passed away, the constant fear that she wasn't enough, wasn't strong, wasn't whole. Yet something about Willow's presence changed the shape of that ache. Here was a creature even more lost than she was, afraid but not defeated. Madison wondered if, by saving Willow, she might also save a piece of herself and her daughter. Inside the apartment, the night dragged on. Nora tossed and turned, waking to listen for Willow's movements outside. Madison sat at the table, sketching by lamplight. Quick, messy drawings of horses running free, of her mother's smile, of Nora with arms outstretched. Her grief softened a little, edged by purpose. By morning, the sky cleared just enough for sunlight to poke through the clouds. Nora ran outside with a fresh bucket of water and a bag of chopped apples. Willow kept her distance, but she watched, ears pricked. Nora set the food down, then sat just outside the fence and opened her book again, reading about brave horses and the children who loved them. All day, Willow's trust was measured in inches. She'd sniff the air, stretch her neck toward Nora, then dart away if anyone moved too quickly. Madison called the local vet, Dr. Chloe Min, to schedule a visit. She spent the afternoon searching for advice online: how to help a traumatized horse, what to feed her, how to spot signs of deeper pain. Every answer seemed to come with a warning. Patience was everything. Healing would be slow. At sunset, Madison found herself lingering by the fence, watching Willow graze at the far edge, one eye always on the house. Nora joined her, a sketchbook in her lap. She drew pictures of Willow, sometimes strong and bold, sometimes small and scared. "She's like us, Mom," Nora said softly, tracing a scar with her pencil. "We're all trying to get used to new things." Madison nodded. "We'll take it one day at a time, honey. That's all anyone can do." That night, as Nora fell asleep, she dreamed of Willow galloping across green fields, her mane flying, no ropes or scars. Madison dreamed, too, not of her mother's absence, but of a second chance, a world where broken things could become whole again. Outside, Willow stood under the apple tree, eyes fixed on the house, ears tuned to every sound. She didn't sleep much, but for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel entirely alone. And in the morning, there would be more small steps, more gentle words, and maybe the beginnings of trust, enough to believe that a new life could grow from old wounds. Every morning in the Jenkins household began with quiet rituals, a rhythm as delicate as the first light threading through kitchen curtains. Nora was always the first one up, slipping into her boots and raincoat, even if the ground was only damp with dew. Sometimes she'd sneak outside with her sketchbook and a pocketful of chopped apples, her heart pounding with hope that maybe, just maybe, today would be the day Willow let her come close. The first few days passed in a slow, careful dance. Willow watched every move from the far side of the paddock, head low, tail flicking nervously, as if any sudden gesture might send her running. But Nora had learned patience. She'd read somewhere that you had to let a scared animal come to you, not the other way around. So she read aloud while sitting cross-legged in the grass, drawing stories in the dirt, her voice soft as the breeze rustling the old apple tree. Madison observed it all from the kitchen window, mug of lukewarm coffee in hand. She felt an ache, both pride and worry, watching her daughter's dedication. Madison wanted to believe they could heal this horse, but the practical voice inside her kept nagging. Bills to pay, groceries to stretch, the looming call from their landlord if he saw hoof prints where there ought to be none. On the third morning, Nora looked up from her story to see Willow taking a single step closer, ears forward, nostrils twitching. Nora held her breath, afraid that even breathing too loudly might shatter the fragile progress. Willow stretched her neck toward the outstretched apple in Nora's palm, lips brushing against her fingers for a brief, electric second before shying away. Nora's heart soared. "Did you see that, Mom?" she called, her face split in a rare, genuine grin. Later that afternoon, Dr. Chloe Min arrived, her battered green truck rattling up the gravel alley behind the house. She was a small woman with gentle hands and a calm presence, her stethoscope slung like a necklace over her windbreaker. Madison felt her nerves bunching up as she led Dr. Min to the paddock, but the vet's warm smile set her at ease. "Let's just spend a few minutes letting her get used to me," Dr. Min said quietly, speaking as much to Madison as to the mare. She moved with careful intention, never facing Willow head-on, offering her palm with a bit of peppermint hidden in her fingers. Willow sniffed, shivered, then miraculously accepted the treat, her dark eyes never leaving Dr. Min's face. "She's more scared than hurt now," Dr. Min explained, gently running her hands along Willow's back and checking the old scar. "But she's made of tough stuff. Horses like her, they don't forget kindness, even if it takes them a while to believe in it again." She showed Nora how to brush Willow's mane with soft, slow strokes, teaching her to hum so the horse would know where she was. That evening, as the sky blushed pink and gold, Madison found Jamie waiting on their porch with 2 steaming cups of tea. Jamie was the sort of friend who never judged, just listened, and that's what Madison needed. They sat together, watching Nora and Willow circle each other with growing trust. "I'm terrified, Jamie," Madison confessed, wrapping her hands around her mug for warmth. "What if I can't do this? What if I mess it all up? For Nora, for Willow, for myself?" Her words spilled out, the way rainwater runs down a window after weeks of holding back. Jamie bumped her shoulder gently. "Nobody knows how to do life perfectly, Maddie. But you're here and you care. That counts for more than you think. You're not alone. Let me help where I can. And let Nora help you too." Madison wiped at her eyes. "She's so brave. Braver than I feel most days." They watched as Nora sang softly to Willow, her voice shaky but determined. Willow didn't flinch from the brush anymore. In fact, she stepped forward, tilting her head to make the work easier. By the week's end, the changes were small but undeniable. Willow would take treats from Nora's palm without hesitation. She'd approach the fence whenever she saw Madison coming, hoping for a gentle scratch between the ears. Her eyes, once wild with fear, began to soften. There were still moments when a loud car or a barking dog sent her retreating to the far corner, but she no longer spun in frantic circles or refused to eat. One afternoon, Nora brought out a fresh drawing. 3 stick figures beneath a wide apple tree. One with long brown hair, her. One with curly hair and glasses, Madison. And a large chestnut-colored horse with a blue ribbon on its mane. Across the top, Nora had written in careful block letters, "Family, me, Mom, Willow." She showed it to Madison, who tried and failed not to cry. "Can I hang it on the fridge?" Madison asked, her voice catching. Nora nodded, eyes shining. That night, as Madison tucked Nora into bed, she lingered a little longer, smoothing the hair from her daughter's forehead. "I'm proud of you, you know," she whispered, "for loving her, for not giving up." Nora looked up, voice serious. "It's not just about Willow, Mom. It's about us, too. We all need a little extra kindness." Madison smiled, a real, steady smile she hadn't felt in weeks. "Yeah, honey, we do. Outside, the evening settled in, peaceful and calm. Willow grazed quietly under the apple tree, her body finally at rest, her eyes on the house where new hope was taking root. The slow dance of trust was just beginning, and for the first time in a long while, all three, Nora, Madison, and Willow, let themselves believe that healing, though slow, was possible. A week after Willow arrived, the Jenkins backyard finally felt less like a stranger's holding pen and more like a home. Willow now greeted Nora at the gate each morning with a quiet nicker, and though she still jumped at thunder or the shriek of brakes on the avenue, she'd begun to trust in the little routines: fresh hay, soft words, a brushing session beneath the apple tree. Madison found herself savoring these small moments: the smell of horse and grass on Nora's jacket, the peace that settled in her chest when she watched her daughter and Willow moving in slow circles, two halves of something healing. But no matter how safe they tried to make their little world, the outside always had a way of breaking in. It was a Saturday morning just after sunrise. Mist drifted up from the river, making the backyard look like an island cut off from the rest of Astoria. Nora was already outside, humming as she scattered chopped carrots near the fence. Madison watched from the kitchen, mug in hand, feeling an unfamiliar surge of contentment as she caught sight of Nora's wild bedhead and Willow's brightening eyes. Then, a single bark shattered the stillness. A scruffy, mud-streaked dog, a stray Nora had seen darting around the neighborhood before, squeezed under a loose board in the fence and bounded into the paddock, teeth bared, fur raised in a wild panic. The sudden chaos was explosive. Willow's head shot up, ears pinned flat, and she let out a high, panicked whinny that split the air. "No!" Nora screamed, heart dropping as the dog lunged, snapping at Willow's heels. The mare bolted, galloping the perimeter, desperate for escape. Mud flew, hooves churning up grass and earth in frantic circles. Madison dropped her mug and tore out the back door, bare feet slapping against the cold, wet ground. "Nora, get back!" Madison shouted, but the words barely registered over the pounding of Willow's hooves and the frantic barking. Nora's instinct was to help, not to hide. She ducked under the paddock rail, running straight for Willow, waving her arms and shouting, "Shoo! Go away! Leave her alone!" The dog, startled, turned toward Nora, snarling. Willow spun, wild-eyed, and charged between the dog and the little girl. Everything happened in a blur: the barking, the shouts, the reek of mud and panic. The gate to the paddock banged open as Willow's body slammed past it, dog snapping at her heels. Madison's breath caught in her throat as she saw Nora just a few steps away from the road. A delivery van, oblivious to the chaos, barreled down the street, tires humming on the wet pavement. Time slowed to a crawl. Willow, with a clarity born from raw instinct and love, surged forward, cutting off Nora's path. She reared up, using her body as a barrier, her flank striking the van's side mirror with a sickening crack. The van driver slammed the brakes, the vehicle skidding, but the force knocked Willow sideways. She crumpled to the ground, legs tangled beneath her. "Nora!" Madison screamed, her heart in her throat, as she rushed across the yard. She gathered her daughter in her arms, checking frantically for bruises, scrapes, any sign of injury. Nora was shaken but unharmed, tears streaming down her face as she struggled to break free. "Willow!" Nora sobbed, wriggling loose and dropping to her knees beside the fallen mare. Willow's eyes rolled with pain, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Blood oozed from a deep cut on her side, staining her coat a dark, awful red. The dog slunk away, tail between its legs, vanishing into the fog as quickly as it had come. Madison knelt in the mud, arms around Nora as they pressed their faces to Willow's neck. She felt her world shrinking to this one fragile life, everything else fading into static. Her hands shook as she dialed the emergency vet, voice breaking with urgency. Within minutes, neighbors gathered, drawn by the noise. The van driver, pale and horrified, kept apologizing. "I didn't see her. I swear she just appeared. Is the horse going to be okay?" An elderly woman from next door brought a blanket, draping it gently over Willow's trembling form. She saved me, Mom," Nora whispered, her voice raw with wonder and fear. "She knew the car was coming. She kept me safe." Madison pressed her lips to Nora's hair, tears streaking down her cheeks. "I know, honey. She's brave. So are you." Dr. Min arrived, breathless, her hands already gloved. She checked Willow's pulse, listened to her heart, then ordered a makeshift splint for the injured leg. "We have to move her. She's lost a lot of blood. We need to get her to the animal hospital now." A flurry of activity followed. Neighbors helping to lift Willow onto a stretcher, Madison riding in the back of Dr. Min's truck with her hand on the mare's neck, murmuring encouragement. Nora rode up front, clutching the blanket Willow had worn, her face streaked with tears but her jaw set in fierce determination. At the animal hospital, everything smelled sharp and clean, so different from the earth and grass at home. Madison and Nora waited, numb with fear, as Dr. Min and her team worked on Willow behind closed doors. Time stretched, every minute loaded with dread. Madison tried to comfort Nora, but found herself needing her daughter's courage just as much. Finally, Dr. Min emerged, her scrubs flecked with blood, but her eyes gentle. "She's stable for now," she announced. "The cut was deep, but it missed any major arteries. She'll need stitches and a few days of rest. But she'll live thanks to you." Nora burst into relieved tears, hugging Madison tightly. The van driver, who'd waited outside, wringing his cap in his hands, stepped in to apologize again, his voice shaking with regret. Neighbors, too, stopped by to check on Willow and left cards and treats at the front desk. News spread quickly in the community. People talked about how the brown mare had saved Nora, how she'd put herself between the girl and danger without a second thought. For the first time, Willow wasn't just a stray, she was a hero. As night fell and the animal hospital quieted, Madison and Nora sat beside Willow's stall, their hands resting on her neck. Nora whispered stories about wild horses and freedom, promising that they would never leave her behind. Madison looked at her daughter, face streaked with mud and tears, but eyes shining with fierce love, and felt a surge of gratitude so strong it nearly knocked her over. Willow had risked everything for Nora. In that moment, Madison understood. Family was something you built, day by day, choice by choice, and love, sometimes wild and wounded, was what made it real. But as they watched Willow sleep, a question lingered in Madison's mind, shadowed and uncertain. Had they done enough? Could they ever repay the debt they owed this extraordinary broken horse? And, as the darkness settled, one truth burned bright. Their story together was far from over. The halls of the Astoria Animal Hospital were painted a pale, hopeful blue. But for Madison and Nora, every second waiting for news of Willow felt like another shadow crowding in. The staff let them sleep in the waiting room that first night. Madison curled awkwardly on a plastic chair and Nora wrapped in a blanket on the floor. Every time footsteps echoed down the hallway, they tensed, hearts leaping, fearing the worst, hoping for the smallest good news, but Willow survived surgery. Dr. Min assured them in the morning that the bleeding had stopped and the stitches were holding. "She's tougher than she looks," Dr. Min said, a gentle smile flickering. "She's got plenty of fight left in her." Willow's body was still weak and battered, but when Nora visited her stall and stroked her nose, The mare flicked her ears and pressed closer, her breathing easing for the first time in hours. By the third day, Willow could stand for short stretches. Nora drew pictures on the hospital's whiteboard. Horses galloping through sunlit fields, hearts and stick-figure families, always with a brown mare at the center. Madison read articles about animal trauma and texted Jamie for advice, trying to keep her own worries at bay. She could feel the old ache in her chest, grief and fear twisted together, but now it was colored by fierce protectiveness. One afternoon, Dr. Min suggested they take Willow out for a short walk on the hospital grounds. Nora beamed, fastening the lead rope and speaking softly, "You're okay now, Willow. I'm right here." The mare limped, still cautious but braver now, following Nora and Madison through the tall grass near the parking lot. They were circling a stand of birch trees when a man's voice called out, harsh and too familiar. "Well, well, look what the cat dragged in." Madison's pulse jumped. A figure stepped from behind a pickup, big-shouldered, stubble on his jaw, anger simmering in his narrowed eyes. Luke Sanderson, Willow's former owner. He stalked closer, boots crunching gravel. "That's my horse right there. Been looking all over for her." His gaze raked over Willow, then Madison and Nora. "You folks got no right, keeping what doesn't belong to you." Madison instinctively stepped in front of Nora, shielding her. "She's not yours anymore. You abandoned her. We rescued her. She's been hurt." Luke's lips curled into a sneer. "I left her at the market for someone to buy. I never said you could just steal her. She's worth more than you think, especially after all this drama." He jabbed a finger at Willow, whose ears flattened and muscles bunched in alarm. Nora clung to Willow's side, voice shaking but determined. "She's not going back with you. She's family now." Willow stepped between Nora and Luke, her body tense, nostrils flaring. She didn't bolt this time. Instead, she stood her ground, her dark eyes fixed on the man who'd hurt her. The memory of old wounds flickered in the way she shifted her weight, but she did not retreat. Dr. Min, who had come out to check on them, caught the tail end of the exchange. She intervened, her tone professional but edged with steel. "Sir, I'll have to ask you to leave. Willow is under medical care. If you have a legal claim, you can take it up with the authorities." Luke's eyes narrowed. "Don't think this is over. I'll get my horse back one way or another." He stormed off, kicking up dust as he went, his threats hanging heavy in the humid air. Madison's hands shook as she hugged Nora. "It's all right, baby. We won't let him take her. I promise." Nora's voice was a whisper. "He can't hurt her again. We won't let him." But Madison's certainty wavered. That night, after getting Willow settled, she lingered outside the hospital, her phone clutched tight. Jamie answered on the first ring. Madison's voice trembled, her fear spilling out in a rush. "He found us. Luke, the man who hurt Willow. He wants her back. What if he tries something?" Jamie's reassurance was steady and immediate. "You have every right to keep her safe. Don't let him bully you, and get the vet to document everything. If he's got a record, he'll have a hard time making any case stick." Back inside, Dr. Min pulled Madison aside. Her expression was grave but kind. "Madison, you need to know. Luke's under investigation for animal cruelty. You did the right thing taking Willow away from him. I'll help however I can. I'll write up everything for the authorities and testify if needed." Relief mingled with fresh worry in Madison's chest. She hugged Dr. Min, tears pricking her eyes. "Thank you. I don't know what we'd do without you." That night, Nora refused to leave Willow's stall, clutching her old blanket and whispering stories of heroes and happy endings. Willow listened, her body still trembling, but her eyes brighter each time Nora stroked her mane. Madison sat on a folding chair nearby, watching them both, feeling the shape of her own courage beginning to change. Fear hadn't gone away. It pulsed stronger now, in fact, but she realized it didn't have to win. Before dawn, Madison filed a police report, adding Dr. Min's statement about Willow's abuse and Luke's threats. She knew the road ahead would be hard. Court hearings, paperwork, the possibility of Luke showing up again. But for the first time, she felt something solid beneath the worry. A community of people ready to stand by her, and a cause worth fighting for. In the days that followed, neighbors came by the hospital, leaving flowers, cards, and bags of apples. The delivery van driver stopped in with his own daughter, who asked shyly if she could pet Willow. Madison watched as the brown mare, still battered but so much stronger now, leaned into the girl's hand, gentle and calm. Luke's shadow still lingered, but it was no longer all-consuming. For every threat he made, a dozen people showed up to offer support. Dr. Min connected Madison with an animal welfare attorney, who started gathering paperwork and evidence of Willow's transformation. "It's not just about the law," she explained. "It's about showing the world that animals like Willow deserve a second chance. And so do people." At home, Nora painted a new sign for the window. "We love Willow. Family forever." Madison hung it up with pride. When the mail brought a notice of a possible legal challenge from Luke, she felt the fear rise again. But this time, she didn't face it alone. On Willow's first day back home, the paddock was decorated with streamers and fresh hay. The whole neighborhood came out to watch, cheering as Madison and Nora led Willow through the gate. The mare paused, head held high, eyes scanning the crowd, before settling on Nora with something like gratitude. Madison squeezed Nora's shoulder. "We'll fight for her, honey, no matter what." Nora grinned, hope renewed. "We're brave, Mom, because we have each other." And as dusk fell, the paddock glowed with the warmth of lantern light and laughter. Willow grazed in the soft grass, her scars and fears still real but slowly fading. Surrounded now not by shadows, but by love, hope, and the promise of a better tomorrow. Autumn swept over Astoria with brisk winds and fiery leaves that twirled across the riverfront park. The town came alive for the annual Astoria Harvest Festival, a swirl of food stalls, crafts, and the much-loved rescue parade. Madison and Nora stood side by side at the paddock fence, excitement and anxiety tumbling in their chests as they fitted Willow's new blue halter and carefully brushed her mane. For the first time in months, the world felt bigger than the backyard. For the first time, Willow would step out into the community, her story on full display. Madison's hands shook as she tied a ribbon in Willow's mane, heart thumping with a mother's pride and 100 nagging fears. What if Willow panicked in the crowd? What if Luke tried something? But she caught a glimpse of Nora's steady eyes, so much older than 7, and drew a shaky breath. "She's ready, Mom," Nora whispered, offering a carrot as Willow nuzzled her hand. "She trusts us." Jamie arrived early, helping Madison carry their handmade banner, "Willow, our miracle mare." Madison's art students had painted it with bright sunflowers, blue rivers, and a chestnut horse with kind eyes. As they led Willow out, a small crowd gathered along the main street. News of the accident and the custody fight had made Willow a local celebrity. Strangers waved and called encouragement. Madison felt the nerves in her belly begin to unwind. Maybe, just maybe, they weren't alone in this fight. The festival itself was a noisy riot of laughter, frying onions, and distant music. Willow's hooves clopped nervously on the pavement as she passed the pumpkin patch, but she didn't bolt. Madison walked on her left, Nora on her right, each step a test of trust that Willow passed, inch by inch. As the parade began, families lined the streets, waving pennants for their favorite rescue animals: dogs, cats, ponies, and even a rescued goat in a tutu. When the announcer's voice boomed through the loudspeakers, "Here comes Willow, the brave brown mare who saved a little girl," the crowd erupted in applause. Nora's cheeks flushed, and Madison blinked back tears. But not everyone was celebrating. At the far edge of the crowd, near a row of food trucks, Luke Sanderson watched, arms folded, his jaw set. He wasn't alone. Beside him stood a well-dressed man with a briefcase and sharp eyes, talking quietly and pointing toward Willow and the Jenkinses. Madison recognized the local attorney, Mr. Barlow, known for his aggressive tactics and flashy suits. The sight sent a chill down her spine, but she squeezed Nora's hand and kept walking. As they rounded the final corner, Willow startled at a gust of wind that sent paper cups and confetti swirling under her hooves. She danced sideways, nostrils flaring, but Nora whispered, "Easy, girl, I'm here." And Willow calmed, leaning into the girl's steadying hand. The crowd saw it too. The trust, the bond forged through fire and patience. At the end of the parade route, a table of local officials and festival judges waited, ribbons and trophies arranged in neat rows. Madison could barely hear the judges' questions over her own pounding heart. "How did Willow come to you? What makes her special?" Nora answered in a clear, strong voice. "She's my family. She saved me. I think I saved her too." Willow stood beside her, head lowered, as if she understood. When the blue ribbon for Best Comeback was announced, the cheers were deafening. Madison felt tears spill over as the judge pinned the ribbon on Willow's halter. Nora hugged Willow's neck, beaming at Madison. For a moment, nothing else mattered. Not the court dates, not the threats, not even the deep ache of loss that sometimes stole Madison's breath at night. After the parade, families crowded around, asking questions, petting Willow, and snapping photos. Madison overheard several parents discussing adoption or fostering of rescue animals, inspired by Willow's transformation. Dr. Min gave a short speech about second chances for horses, dogs, and people alike. She told the story of Willow's injuries and the brave little girl who wouldn't give up. "Healing takes a village," she finished. "And in Astoria, we look out for each other." But trouble lingered at the edges. Madison noticed Luke and Mr. Barlow taking photos of Willow and gathering signatures on a clipboard. She caught snippets of conversation. Ownership rights, evidence, public support. Every time Willow stepped into the sunlight, Madison felt the shadow of Luke's presence lurking just behind her. She tried to hide her anxiety, but Jamie squeezed her hand. "We're not letting him win. You've got everyone behind you now." As dusk fell, the festival shifted into evening. Strings of lanterns blinked on, music floated over the river, and Willow rested in a quiet paddock set aside for animal stars. Nora sat cross-legged by Willow's side, sketching the blue ribbon and the swirling shapes of the crowd. Madison joined her, the two of them silent for a while, letting the noise of the festival fade into the background. "Do you think she knows she won?" Nora asked, glancing up from her drawing. Madison smiled, brushing Willow's forelock with gentle fingers. "I think she feels it, honey. She knows she's loved. That's the biggest prize of all." Nearby, a cluster of children giggled as they practiced petting Willow, under Dr. Min's careful supervision. More than once, Madison overheard parents promising to visit the animal shelter next weekend. She felt hope stir. Maybe their story was making a difference, not just for Willow, but for other animals, other families. The night ended with a fireworks show, bright colors exploding above the river. Willow startled at the first bang, but this time, she didn't run. Nora wrapped her arms around the mare's neck, humming softly until the noise faded. Madison looked out over the lantern-lit festival and saw, for the first time in a long while, a future she wanted. One filled with second chances and a community that stood up for the voiceless. But as they packed up to head home, Jamie returned with a worried look. "Barlow was talking to Luke all night. They've got some kind of plan. Be careful, Maddie." Madison nodded, determination and fear warring inside her. She glanced back at Willow, who watched her with quiet faith. "We're not giving up," Madison whispered. "Not ever." As they made their way home beneath a sky still shimmering with the last sparks of fireworks, Willow walked calmly between Madison and Nora, blue ribbon bright against her brown coat, a living symbol of courage, hope, and the family that refused to let her go. Fall rain battered the courthouse windows the morning of Willow's hearing, a storm echoing the turmoil inside Madison's chest. Nora wore her best blue dress and a ribbon from the festival, gripping Madison's hand so tightly their knuckles turned white. Willow, brushed to a deep shine, waited in the trailer just outside, her eyes calm and curious, trusting Madison and Nora to protect her once again. Luke Sanderson's challenge had come as a blow, a thick packet of legal papers demanding that Willow be returned to him as lost property. Attached was a statement from his lawyer, Mr. Barlow, and a petition with signatures he'd collected at the festival. The threat wasn't just about Willow. It felt personal, a test of everything Madison and Nora had built. Astoria's courthouse was old, with heavy wooden doors and murals of ships on the Columbia River. Inside, neighbors and friends packed the pews. Jamie, Dr. Min, the van driver who'd nearly hit Willow, parents and children from the Harvest Festival parade. Someone held a handmade sign, "Let Willow stay with her family." Madison felt their support like a warm blanket around her shoulders. Still, she could barely meet Luke's eyes as they waited for the judge. The bailiff called the case. Judge Callahan, a woman in her 50s with silver hair pulled tight at the nape of her neck, read the paperwork in silence. "This is about more than ownership," she finally said. "It's about the welfare of a living creature and the bonds we form." Mr. Barlow began, his voice smooth but cold. "My client simply wants his property returned. There was no bill of sale, no transfer of ownership. This horse was abandoned only temporarily. The family who claims her did so without permission." Madison's stomach twisted. She stood when called, hands trembling. She spoke quietly, voice shaking, but she met the judge's eyes. "Willow was left at the market, tied up, starving and injured. The vet and my daughter can tell you, we didn't steal her. We saved her." The judge nodded. "Let's hear from the witnesses." First, Dr. Min testified. She described Willow's old wounds, the weeks of trauma, the scars both physical and emotional. She'd suffered severe neglect. She needed care and kindness, not more pain. Since living with the Jenkins family, she's transformed, healed, bonded, become part of their lives. Nora's turn came next. She stood on a step stool to reach the microphone, clutching a letter she'd written in rainbow ink. Her voice quivered, but she read every word. "Willow is my family. I was scared and lonely after my grandma died, and Willow was scared and lonely too. But we helped each other. She saved me from a car. I promise I'll always take care of her. Please let her stay." The courtroom was silent. Even Judge Callahan blinked hard, her voice softer as she asked, "How does Willow behave with you, Nora?" "She listens when I read to her. She lets me braid her mane. She only eats apples if I give them to her." Nora smiled shyly. I think she loves me. Luke took the stand, angry and defensive. She's my property. That's the law. I could have sold her if I wanted. They're turning everyone against me with these stories. Mr. Barlow presented paperwork, a timeline, and the signatures. He argued that the law was on their side. Ownership was clear, no matter what had happened since. Madison's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Miss Perez, countered with veterinary records, statements from neighbors, and dozens of letters from families inspired by Willow's story. She read a note from the van driver. That horse saved a life. She's more than property, she's a hero. Dr. Min's detailed testimony about Willow's recovery and the obvious bond between horse and family became the heart of their case. The judge called for a recess. Madison paced the empty hallway, her hands shaking. Nora tugged her sleeve. Will they take her away, Mom? Madison knelt and pulled Nora close, her voice fierce despite her fear. We've done everything we could. We told the truth. No matter what happens, we're a family, and we always fight for each other. Back inside, the crowd leaned forward as Judge Callahan returned. Her decision came after a long, weighty silence. There is no doubt that Willow suffered in her previous life. There is also no doubt she has found a family and purpose here. The law allows for exceptions in cases of cruelty and abandonment. I find in favor of the Jenkins family. Willow is to remain in their care. A cheer broke out in the courtroom. Nora burst into tears of joy. Jamie hugged Madison so tightly her feet left the floor. Dr. Min wiped her eyes and clapped Nora on the back. Luke slumped in his chair, anger draining away into defeat. Judge Callahan looked directly at him. Animals are not just property, they're living beings, and those who harm them must answer for it. Afterward, the courthouse steps became a place of celebration. People snapped photos with Willow, who'd been led up for the occasion, her blue ribbon bright, her eyes gentle and proud. Madison thanked every person who'd written a letter, signed a petition, or stood up in court. She felt lighter than she had in years, the old burden of grief replaced by a fierce, grateful joy. That night, as the rain faded and a pale moon rose, Madison, Nora, and Willow walked the backyard under the apple tree. Nora hugged Willow's neck, her voice full of wonder. We did it, girl. We really did it. Madison looked at the stars, breathing deep. She realized the family they'd fought for wasn't just the three of them. It was every person who'd stood by their side, every animal saved, because someone cared enough to say, "You belong." Inside, Nora hung the blue ribbon on the fridge and pinned her letter beside it. Madison smiled, her heart full and her fears finally quiet. They had won more than a court case. They'd found the kind of courage that changes everything, the courage to love, to hope, and to hold tight to the ones who need you most. The world outside could still be rough, but inside the little house, there was nothing but gratitude, laughter, and the warmth of a family, stronger now than ever before. The following Saturday, the Riverside Park in Astoria was transformed. What had once been the backdrop for a lonely, rain-soaked market was now alive with color and laughter. Strings of paper lanterns danced overhead. Tables were laden with pies and flowers, and children darted among picnic blankets, their faces painted with horseshoes and hearts. At the center of it all was Willow, grazing contentedly beneath the old willow tree that had stood by the river for generations, as if she had always belonged. Madison and Nora worked together to hang a bright new banner between two posts, celebrating Willow, hope, healing, and second chances. The words shimmered in the morning sun. It felt unreal to Madison that only a few weeks before she'd been so afraid of losing her mother, of failing her daughter, of opening her heart to another fragile life. Now, as she looked around at the gathered neighbors and friends, she realized how far they'd all come. Jamie arrived with trays of cookies shaped like horses. Dr. Min helped organize a Meet the Rescue corner, where families could pet Willow and learn about fostering animals in need. Even the van driver who'd once nearly ended Willow's story came, his young daughter in tow, shyly offering a bouquet of daisies. Willow dipped her head, gentle as ever, her transformation now the talk of the town. As the celebration unfolded, Madison took a moment to step away and watch Nora lead Willow through a slow, careful circuit around the field. Nora's laugh rang out as Willow nuzzled her hand, and Madison felt a deep, quiet pride. The way Nora walked now, shoulders back, chin up, spoke of bravery forged not in the absence of fear, but in facing it together. A hush fell as Jamie called everyone to gather by the bandstand. Madison stood beside Nora and Willow, and all eyes turned to them. Madison hesitated. She'd never been one for speeches, but when she saw Nora's encouraging smile, she found her voice. "I want to thank all of you for being here," Madison began, her voice trembling only slightly. "Most of you know what Willow has been through, and maybe some of you know what we've been through too. When we first brought her home, I thought we were saving her. But the truth is, she saved us too. She taught us that trust isn't given lightly, but earned day by day. She reminded us that family isn't always about blood. It's about who shows up and who loves you when you're most afraid." A gentle breeze rustled the crowd. Nora reached for Madison's hand, squeezing it tight. "I used to think healing meant things would go back to the way they were," Madison continued, her gaze meeting Dr. Min's across the crowd. "But healing is messy. It's slow. Some days it feels like you're moving backwards. But if you keep showing up, if you keep loving even when it hurts, one day you realize you're not just surviving anymore. You're living." She paused, her heart full. Willow's story isn't just about a horse. It's about all of us. It's about the courage to try again after you've been broken. It's about the small acts of kindness that change lives, one day at a time. The applause was long and genuine. Jamie wiped her eyes. Dr. Min hugged Madison, and Nora, with tears shining in her lashes, stood as tall as she ever had. After the speeches, Nora took a moment to rest in the grass beside Willow, her arms flung around the mare's sturdy neck. She whispered, "We're brave because we have each other. Aren't we, girl?" Willow snorted softly, as if in agreement. Throughout the afternoon, more and more families signed up at Dr. Min's rescue booth. Children pleaded with parents to meet the shelter dogs and cats, and volunteers told stories about second chances, about the ways even the smallest kindness could ripple out, transforming not just animals, but the people who cared for them. As dusk crept in, lanterns flickered to life and the park glowed with soft golden light. Madison sat with Jamie on a blanket, watching Nora play with her friends and Willow graze nearby. She felt the old ache of grief, but it was different now. Softer, changed. Her mother's absence would always be a part of her, but now it lived beside gratitude, for the friends she'd made, for the daughter who taught her courage, for the horse who'd become family. She thought back to that first rainy market day and all the moments since, the fear, the setbacks, the hope that had refused to die. Madison understood now that life wasn't about avoiding pain or failure. It was about facing them, together. Every scar, every heartbreak, every small victory had led them here. Nora crawled into Madison's lap, tired but happy, her fingers tangled in Willow's mane. "Mom," she said quietly, "do you think Willow knows we're her family now?" Madison hugged her close. I think she does, sweetheart. And I think she knows you're the bravest girl I've ever met." For a long moment, they watched the river glimmer under the lanterns. Nora leaned her head on Madison's shoulder. I think I was scared for a long time, after Grandma. But when we helped Willow, I didn't feel so alone anymore." Madison kissed the top of her head, a lump in her throat. "None of us are alone, not really. Sometimes it just takes a while to find you're heard." Around them, laughter echoed and music played. Madison felt a quiet certainty. The world wasn't perfect, and healing wasn't quick, but love, real love, could turn even the loneliest moments into something shining and new. As the night wore on, neighbors packed up tables and lanterns, but nobody wanted to leave just yet. More families promised to visit the rescue center. More hands reached out to pet Willow. More voices promised to help however they could. Willow's story had become the town's story, a testament to what was possible when people chose hope over fear and compassion over indifference. Madison knew there would be hard days ahead, but she also knew they would face them together. Because in the end, the bravest thing anyone can do is love again after being hurt, to trust after betrayal, to keep choosing kindness day after day, no matter what comes. The Oregon rain fell gentle and steady, washing the world clean. Months had passed since that stormy night at the Riverside Market, the night when Nora first met Willow, and nothing was ever the same. Now spring edged into summer. The Riverside Market thrummed with life and color, and Madison felt the quiet thrill of beginnings each time she stepped through its crowded lanes. Today, the market was transformed. Stalls overflowed with flowers, fruits, and homemade crafts. Laughter drifted from a circle of children playing near a pen full of rescued animals, dogs with new collars, cats lounging in sunbeams, and a small brown mare moving calmly through it all, her head high and eyes bright. Willow walked with a gentle confidence that would have been unthinkable months before. Nora skipped at Willow's side, her braids bouncing, a bundle of flyers in her hand. The blue ribbon still hung proudly on Willow's halter, but it wasn't her only badge of honor. Beside the pen was a hand-painted sign, "Willow's Welcome, Sanctuary for All." The Jenkins' backyard had become more than just a paddock. With help from neighbors, it was now a tiny sanctuary, open to foster animals and families hoping for a second chance. Madison paused, watching Nora hand a flyer to a shy boy standing at the edge of the pen. "Would you like to meet Willow?" Nora asked. The boy hesitated, clinging to his mother's hand, but Willow stepped forward with the patience of someone who understood fear and loneliness. She lowered her head until her muzzle brushed the boy's hand, waiting. Slowly, a smile crept across his face. Madison's heart swelled with pride, and something else, something lighter than she'd felt in years. She saw her daughter, no longer just a lonely child, but a source of courage for others. She saw Willow, once broken by cruelty, now an anchor for the community. And she saw herself, stronger, more open, and surrounded by friends and neighbors whose lives had been changed by a single act of compassion. The day unfolded in small miracles. A family adopted a stray dog they'd met at the market. An older woman who'd always been afraid of horses let Willow nibble an apple from her palm, laughing for the first time since her husband died. Dr. Min ran an impromptu workshop, teaching children how to gently care for frightened animals. Even the van driver's daughter, once so timid, now led a rescued puppy around the pen with easy confidence. In the early afternoon, Madison gathered everyone by the market's small stage. Nora stood by her side, Willow between them, as Madison looked out at the faces, old friends and new, children and parents, skeptics and believers. For the first time, she felt entirely at home. She took a breath, steady and sure. When we first brought Willow home, she was scared. We were scared too. We'd lost someone we loved, and we weren't sure we'd ever feel whole again. But sometimes rescue goes both ways. When you open your heart to someone who needs you, an animal, a person, you find parts of yourself you thought you'd lost. You build something new together. You become a family. Nora handed her mother a piece of paper. Madison smiled and read aloud. Small acts of kindness ripple out. Saving Willow saved us. Maybe if you open your home or your heart, you'll find a little bit of hope too. There was a long, warm applause. Jamie hugged Madison, whispering, "You did it, Maddie." Dr. Min clapped Nora on the shoulder, beaming with pride. Afterward, as the market bustled on, Madison watched a stream of families visiting their sanctuary's sign-up table. Children asked about fostering kittens, parents jotted their names, and more than one person said, "I never thought I could do this. But Willow's story changed my mind." Later, Nora sat beneath the willow tree with Willow and the shy boy from earlier. She told him about the first night she'd met the Mare, about being afraid, about learning that trust doesn't grow overnight. "She wasn't just a rescue, you know," Nora said, voice gentle. "She rescued us back. That's what real family does." As dusk fell, lanterns began to glow along the riverside. The market quieted, families drifting home, the scent of rain and grass in the air. Madison, Nora, and Willow took one last walk through the park, their footsteps light, their shadows long. The sanctuary sign shimmered in the golden light, a promise that what they'd started would carry on, helping, healing, and giving second chances. At the park's edge, Madison paused. Nora looked up, her eyes full of dreams. Willow nudged them both gently, as if urging them forward. Madison turned to the crowd, her voice steady and full of hope. "If you see someone, two-legged or four, who needs help, don't turn away. One act of kindness can change everything. It changed our lives. It can change yours, too." A gentle rain began to fall, cool and soft. Madison, Nora, and Willow walked home together, family, hope, and healing shining around them in the Oregon evening. They had begun as three broken souls, each carrying loss, fear, and doubt. But together, they had built something that even the hardest storm couldn't wash away. Their story became more than survival. It became a call to action, an invitation to choose love, courage, and patience again and again, every single day. And so, under the willow's sheltering branches and the rain's soft applause, they stepped into their new beginning, confident, united, and ready to share their hope with the world.